Many people have been asking, how is your KvK going so far? So in this video, I'll share some insights from the trenches of actually fighting in this KvK and how it's been evolving. And spoiler alert, it's on your screen, 1960 got a really solid entry into the zone, which you'd kind of expect that, right? And yeah, let's talk about how it's been going. Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and this video is actually being recorded from my restart account so I don't show all the markers. I realize that's probably the best way for me to do this. And if you tuned into my live stream yesterday, along with over 2,000 other people, thank you for dropping in. Thank you for being subscribed. And if you're interested in that sort of stuff, consider smashing the subscribe button. But if we look at this zone and how it evolved, some really funky things happened that at the end of the day, I don't think really changed the outcome of this zone much at all. Now, when you look at what we initially did, we got into this zone 5 as a reminder, and we got into this position entrenched around this Heron, and 1960 stopped attacking us because we were able to trade insanely well with a garrison combo that Chadsky came up with himself. We didn't get it from anywhere else, and that was Gorgo primary with Attila secondary. Now, the funny thing is that it turns out that Attila primary with Gorgo secondary is even better. All of this is only possible mixing troop types, by the way, because we're in a Warriors Unbound KvK where you can change all instances of one troop type to another troop type. So if you were thinking, I need to go max Attila right away, no, not necessarily, but it is very good if you are in one of these KvKs and specifically you are garrisoning. And it's also not terrible for rallying, but we'll talk about that perhaps in another video. So a big part of the reason that we were in this zone, okay? Maybe not a big part of the reason, but one of the benefits is the way I should word this, because that's much more accurate. One of the benefits of holding this position we had is that we had set up a wall hop over here. And at the start of my stream, you'll notice that a barb and then a random port from a GT player ends up blocking our ability to wall hop, which is actually insane how quickly they were able to random port here. Now, I made the joke, how much do you have to pay to make your random ports targeted teleports? But the reality is that I'm sure that's not a thing. They just random ported and they got here. So let's, okay. I feel like I need to clarify that I was not actually serious, but what incredible luck that they were able to fully stop our very, very critical wall hop that would have potentially enabled us to take out these forts because, well, they would have had to have built their way over there. We probably couldn't have taken them out, to be honest. But so you're saying there's a chance? Maybe, maybe not. But the point I'm trying to make is that it set us back territory-wise to needing to wall hop over here. So we switched everything over to SW3, which was not the main game plan, and we built our way out into this area over here, which of course you can see we do not own this area right now. Now, what we did do, however, is defend this area and build over here. And unfortunately, when the passes opened, by the way, not only did we not get our wall hop, despite the fact that we almost tied 1960 for taking the passes. I want you to understand that for a second. We almost tied. We were a second behind 1960, and that second ended up mattering in taking the passes. Pound for pound, you will not find a more whaled and strong kingdom in the game. They have literally every possible accumulated advantage from as many KvKs as you can imagine. So we did pretty good. We were a second off from taking the pass as fast as they were. Maybe there's something we could have done, but I feel pretty damn good about our performance. When you put it in the perspective of, oh, well, you lost by a second. Yeah, that sucks. But when you put it in the perspective of, well, you were up against the kingdom that literally in their last KvK, 2 Imperium kingdoms couldn't hold them back, or they sort of could, but they had to use forts to do it. We did pretty good here. Now, that said, because they took first, they were able to get forts into positions. If we were going to be able to get this level 8 pass, which obviously we wanted, we would have needed to have 3 forts down in order to prevent them from taking out our forts. They built their fort first, and then, boom, they're able to take us out. And like I said, the idea that we will, as a single Imperium kingdom, be able to handle 1960 when 2 Imperium kingdoms were defensive against them when fighting them at the same time. Like, just, you got to keep the context in mind. And people who don't keep the context in mind, well, you know the quality of those comments they're making. So this brings us to a little bit of where we're at, right? So we built around the circle. They also built around the circle. We were able to stick the landing on the forts on the circle, but obviously not at this pass over here. We also stuck the landing on some forts up over here and up here. We were able to build around a little bit into the zone. And 1960 was initially pressing us pretty hard. Now, I'm going to make a separate video showing the insane swarm that had well over, I want to say, 200 million power loss for GT. And we were filling with a combination of farms and mains on a flag over here. That's going to be a separate video launching later today. It was also in my stream. So if you want to go check out the stream, it was pretty sick. Like, we were getting swarmed for 30 minutes, not quite straight. They took a few breathers, but almost 30 minutes straight on our flag. It was nuts. Anyways, overnight, we built out into this position and ultimately lost some of this position, but we're kind of holding around the circle. And this is pretty much where we're at now. They're pushing. We have some amount of territory that we can't spread so thin to defend it all, so that territory ultimately burns, but we are holding in other places. And like, I don't know, will we hold this circle? Hard to say. Which brings me to my next point, which is a reminder that this KvK is free for all. And every time I explain this, people still don't understand it. And I've heard from some of my favorite leaders that leadership is about repetition. So I often find myself repeating things. Also, as it turns out, funny enough, content creation and being a public figure is about repetition, because even if I say things once or twice or 5 or even 10 times, someone new will always roll up to a video and be like, wow, I had never heard that before. That's an interesting perspective. So I try to sometimes repeat myself, but let me try to repeat this in a different way, which is that in a free-for-all KvK, it's all about being the last kingdom standing. This is a free-for-all KvK. And the trick to this situation is to remember that your goal is not necessarily to win a zone, especially as a kingdom like us, okay? Your goal is to be alive to see what happens next. That's the whole point of a free-for-all KvK. Now, this is different than a regular KvK, where your goal is to win the zone. You win the zone, you win the KvK. That's the whole point. But this KvK has another 30 days on it. And so what happens next could be very different. Like, if 1960 presumably battles into Kingsland against 1093, and the two of them get completely drained, and then all the G4s start nipping at their heels, and then we come back in and start doing things, it gets kind of interesting, right? Like, I'm not saying, wow, we'll go take the Zig. What I'm saying is that this is what is considered an infinite game. So in the words of someone much wiser than me, Alex Hormozy, who is an entrepreneur who has made an unbelievable amount of success for himself. And I won't get into that here, but I'll link to one of his videos in the description, okay? But he describes a concept called infinite games versus finite games, all right? And in a finite game, the goal is to knock out a very specific thing in a very specific time. I mean, I'm paraphrasing. I'm trying to sort of put it in the context of the game, but to do that more directly, a finite game would be winning or losing Kingsland. That is like a finite game in a set time frame to like win or lose Kingsland. But a free-for-all KvK is more like an infinite game, where the point of the game is to keep playing. Do you see the difference? The point of Kingsland is to win Kingsland, right? But the point of a free-for-all KvK is to live long enough to keep playing the game and seeing what happens next. Because what happens next, I mean, look, there's a lot of alternate win conditions in this KvK, I would say. For us, one alternate win condition is even just saying we're a part of the reason that 1960 takes an L. And that may or may not be true. They may win this KvK. But like, if they take an L, we have taken a lot of power off of them and their farms. We're definitely a very meaningful portion. I mean, so far, the way it's shaping up, we will be a meaningful portion if they don't have the strength to then beat 93, right? Which is why they're not rallying us at every opportunity, right? Like, if they actually wanted us out of this zone in all these flags that they're not rallying, they're touching them. They're not even building into things that they could be touching, right? Like, if they wanted us out of the zone, we would be out of the zone. But they also realize with different words, perhaps they would say this, that they are playing an infinite game, not the finite game. The infinite game of do the least amount we need to do to own the territory we want to own, because that's the nature of a free-for-all KvK. So it's funny that I thought I would be streaming fighting for many days in a row in this zone potentially, but actually the reality is that things are very calm. Like if I switch over to my main right now, it'll say everyone's happy. There's no war. So we're, I think, playing the infinite game of doing what we need to do to hold. And I'll be honest, we're also having some fun. Abe is a personality you may have seen on my channel several times in the past. He used to come on the stream regularly and guest, and I had a lot of fun with him on voice. Still do, by the way. I don't know if he's in this alliance or which one he's in. But anyways, Abe has so many farms, and he's so bored that he is literally just sending rallies at flags. And he's like, guys, I have like 40 farms. I can't kill the troops on all my farms unless I actually do something. I'm just going to rally them. And he's taking probably terrible trades, but he's just filling his rallies and sending his troops. And it's like, what are you doing? But only a few exceptions, including some fun that we've had, which like I'll probably put that into a separate video. We've mostly been chilling here. And you know, we try to trade positive where we can. I think for the most part we are. And for the most part, we try to farm fill. And I think they're doing the same, right? So what happens next? Well, there's a couple interesting things that will happen next in this KvK in particular. And we'll just go in the sequence of like things that are obvious that everyone can see, right? But the level 6 passes open. And you may recall that 1960 wanted to 1v1 1093 in this zone. That's a part of a big Diplo conversation. I'll have a card in the end screen. You can go check that out. Where, you know, there was a huge disagreement where 93, I think, wanted to do it in this northern zone. And they couldn't find agreement on like which zone that fight was going to happen in. So there's several things that may happen, right? Like in a couple days, I will be streaming. And it is possible that like we see a 1093 1960 fight unfold in San Pedro. Okay. Also, 1093 can start to move into Hellenberg. So we may see 1093 move into here because they can do so through this pass 6. We may see these guys push out of this pass, although I don't know. Feels unlikely. We're blocking it. So, I mean, yeah, I actually have no clue what the game plan is there. I'll say, you know, do I feel like fighting more kingdoms than 1960 at a time? No, like one 1960 to fight at a time is enough. I don't need other things to fight or people or kingdoms to fight at the same time, let alone 4 of them, right? So, yeah, I think that's a pretty clear summary of where we're at. Technically, these past 6 is also open, so I don't know if they're semi-protected. Are they semi-protected? I can't remember. It's possible that another camp can go through there and go through from the attacking side. So that could totally be a thing that happens on some of these passes. I don't know, man. Let me flip over to my main and just give you a quick update on the power loss. So far on the main, power loss is pretty moderate. 2 million T5s down. I don't actually know how I lost siege. I think maybe I reinforced a city. That sounds right. And I think I have that report, and I think I meant to make a video out of that. So that was kind of funny. I'll probably be sharing that. Very moderate troop loss on the main. And that's because I've been filling primarily with the farm, which is the whole point. Okay? Remember, infinite game, right? Like when you're in this situation defending, you want to try to be using your farms where you can. And that's what 1960 is doing. Like, this is not even like a debate if that's the correct thing. Like, literally, that's been their game plan. Like, they will send their rally with 1 T5 troop with the rally leader and fully 100% T4 farms filling the rally. Like, that's the game plan. Only when they're really swarming are they killing off their main troops for the most part. So, on my farm, I managed to kill off a huge chunk of my infantry. And that number is 3.7 million troops in total. And one thing that we figured out pretty quickly when I was trying to farm fill and fill a flag that I was captaining with my main is that there's really just like too many things to do. Like, we're talking about getting swarmed by 1960, the literal strongest kingdom in the game for swarming. So when you put it into that context, it's like, oh, right, okay. So the other issue with stuffing lots of troops with my main while also trying to swap the captain in the main, and people will hear this as an excuse, but like, look, you can take or leave the advice, right? You can totally do with it what you will. Most people will never be in this situation. But if you are in this situation, yes, you can stuff your main troops in there, but just be careful not to accidentally rank up not your garrison captain to be the main. I ended up doing that, which I figured it out pretty quickly. I was only in there for a second, but Chadsky was on voice. He's like, we have a Scipio as a captain. I'm like, hold up, I got it. Anyways, point I'm trying to make is it was definitely tricky to be captaining, filling with the main, and filling with the farm at the same time. And I found it just a lot more sustainable to just constantly be moving my captain around because, dude, we had 3 captains rotating in, by the way, to handle a GT swarm. Anyways, I lost a ton of power from my farm in that particular encounter, and I'll give you a preview of the report because you're probably going to want to go watch this video that I'll do later today, or you could just go watch the stream. But like, this is the report where we took, I mean, this is at least 200 million power off of GT. And there's the rally, but then also there's all the swarmers, baby. And every one of these swarmers, these are where the T5s are. So they try to T4 fill the rally, but like, they were really going for this flag. And some of them traded positive. So some of them traded negative. Like, all in all, it was pretty crazy. And Gorgo Attila still, by the way, is super, super goated. It's doing so well. So anyways, if you want to see a dedicated video on this, consider subscribing. Alternatively, you may have seen this live. If so, drop a comment. I will have a link in the end screen, card in the end screen, where you can go check out the live stream where this was all happening. Dude, it was crazy. It was actually extremely fun. Until next time, you have fun smashing the kingdom.